know it.
With a tear in my eye.
The cream of the crop. Acknowledge me.
What's up, everybody? Episode 350 of Top Rope Nation. Ryan Drosty here with my guy, Jesse Velasquez. No Justin Joint, unfortunately, tonight on this landmark broadcast. Justin not feeling so well. So Justin's on the bench tonight, but luckily I got Jesse here with me to talk all the latest in pro wrestling, a little AEW, a little WWE, a little whatever is on your mind. Let us know in the chat if you're here with us tonight, and let us know what you want us to talk about. Maybe we get to some questions in the closing segment, depending on how many people we get here live. Now, if you're tuning in on the podcast feed, we appreciate you as well, but always fun to have the live viewers. And unfortunately, our Twitter stream is not working yet again because Elon Musk has been screwing with Twitter live streaming. So we are right now on Twitch and YouTube, though. Jesse Velasquez, how you doing tonight, sir?
He's been screwing with a lot of things lately. I've been noticing his Twitter feed's getting extremely political ever since Saturday evening.
Yeah, remember when he said something about how he wasn't going to endorse any candidates or any of that? BS. He bought Twitter to influence an election. Let's be real. Come on.
That's part of it. You got somebody else showing their true colors tonight, brother, and saying that a certain candidate is his hero.
Oh, man. Here's the only political thing I'll say tonight. I saw one of those clips. Hogan, he's making the rounds at the RNC, and he was on Fox News, and they asked him about, like why he was appearing and stuff. And he said, the other side is taking away everything we care about. And with Hulk Hogan saying that, my only response was, what, racism? We know how much he loves his racism. I mean, this Hulk Hogan, this is a guy who, if he were to appear in the WWE locker room, Jesse, he'd have a hard time finding anyone who would piss on him if he was on fire, to be honest with you. So, do whatever you want. Not the most popular guy in pro wrestling, and you're seeing evidence of why, partially in current events. So, yeah, I will not be tuning in. Will you be tuning in? Will you be catching the highlights, Jesse?
No, and I do want to say this as well. I think he might be phonically challenged because he looked at the Democratic card and saw Kamala Harris, thinking it might have been Kamala Harris.
Oh,
so he had to go to the RNC side.
Oh God, that's good. Hey,
well, I know that evil Ugandan giant, brother.
Oh, Hulk Hogan, we kid, but not really. Not really. Jesse, you got anything in the glass tonight? I know you said last week that you've had these early Friday workouts lately, so you wouldn't be drinking. But I don't know. I'll ask you. Am I drinking alone tonight, or do you got anything in the glass?
Sadly, you are. I have been debating going up there and grabbing the Hendrix because I actually have a shorter morning than normal. So I think it's going to be like a 3.5-hour tour. No, that's not a Gilligan's Island reference. 3-hour tour. So I could have one and then just take a mid-morning nap when I get back.
Yeah. You know what? I picked up some Hendrix gin tonight when I was at the grocery store. I was out and I noticed it and I was like, you know what? It makes me think of Jesse. I got to get some more. It's good stuff.
It's tasty. Yeah, it's in the high end of, it's like, what is it? Like the middle end of the gin prices.
Yeah. It's like $35-$40, something like that for a bottle. Yeah, it's not bad. Well, here's what I got tonight, Jesse. I got Surly Furious. It's a classic. I try to keep some of these on hand all the time. It was one of my first craft beers that I really loved. And, back then, my wife being from Minnesota, we'd go up, visit her family. I'd mule back as many cases of Surly Furious as I could. And now I can get it right here in Iowa. And I always stock up on it. It has never lost its luster to me. It's just a rock solid IPA.
It is. It's old reliable, I will say. Usually when I go to Surly's, which is usually a couple of times a summer, I usually get whatever they have in store or in the brewery itself, just because you can't get anywhere else. They have some pretty good exclusives inside that large brewery of theirs that's similar in size to Toppling Goliath, which we were at a few years ago.
Yeah. So if you've never had Surly Furious, check it out. It's available, almost across the country these days, I think. Certainly in the upper Midwest.
Yes.
All right. So, guys, you see the names scrolling across the bottom of the feed right now. Those are the wonderful patrons. Again, we shouted out some new patrons last week. Didn't have any new signups over the last week. So, if you want to hear your name get announced on the show, join the Patreon page and the 40 some supporters we have over there with new bonus content dropping all the time. We are down to the final hours of our poll on what will be the next edition of Top Rope Nation Classics. It's coming down to the wire. It's basically between an old Coliseum video, WWF Grudges, Gripes, and Grunts, which features a tag match with Bret Hart and Randy Savage against Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels. Kind of an interesting one. Or WCW Bash at the Beach 2000, a famous show for how bad it is, you guys. So go and get your votes in on what you want to hear us talk about this month on Classics. We'll be recording that here in the next couple of weeks. You can hear that by joining the Patreon page. And Jesse, know what else you can hear on the Patreon page right now? An interview.
Yes, you can. And yeah, go ahead. Continue.
About it all?
I listened to it yesterday, I think like an hour after you dropped it.
Ah, nice. So if you want to hear me interview Rhea Ripley, join the Patreon page. I did this interview a little less than 4 years ago. This is like the summer of 2020 during the height of the pandemic. And essentially, it was an interview I did for a writing job I had at the time. So, of course, I had a recording of it. And I used some of her quotes to write some articles, but not everything from the interview made the written articles. And, the audio has never been heard before. And so I decided to put this out as a bonus for our Patreon supporters. So it's an edition of TRN Extra, myself interviewing Rhea Ripley, who is certainly in the news these days. Thought you guys would enjoy it at this moment. So that's why I released it. And I got to tell you, I got a lot more of these with WWE stars and AEW stars in the archives, which I will be trickling out to our Patreon supporters in the weeks and months ahead. So sign up if you want to hear some never before heard interviews with some of the biggest stars in pro wrestling. And then, of course, TRN Classics, TRN Unplugged, all the bonus content. Best way to support Top Rope Nation. If you're here right now on YouTube, make sure to hit the like, subscribe to the channel. That also helps us out a lot. All right, Jesse. So episode 250 of AEW Dynamite aired last night. Certainly got people talking. To me, AEW is really on a roll right now. We talked about this on the show last week. I mean, they are putting on some really, really good television, I feel. And I was a little surprised when I got on Twitter this morning and I saw that there was some disagreement on how good Will Ospreay versus MJF was last night. They went 59 minutes and 58 seconds, a last second pin by MJF over Ospreay to capture the international title. Jesse, what did you think? Were you a big fan of this match or did you think it was overrated?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. I put it. It was definitely an excellent match. I feel it was probably the best match on television this year. There were times though where I was getting a little bit distracted. I thought they did a decent job, but I think one thing that was very difficult for me and a big reason why I wasn't into it as much as I should have been was just because I know we kind of roll our eyes when we hear, oh, there isn't a story involved, or there isn't enough of a story, much like MJF and Omega from AEW Collision last year when that story was rushed pretty quick. It was like a 2-week, not even a 2-week build. I mean, you had to like go offline or online to Twitter or YouTube to find out just kind of the backstory of it. Whereas, and then with this MJF Ospreay build, it's only been a couple of weeks. Just announced this for the anniversary show. We know that there's some Warner Brothers stuff going on where AEW is looking to sign. So I wish there was a little more to it. I can't believe I'm saying that, but I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it. That is for sure. Definitely a clash of styles. And speaking of clash of styles, we saw Styles clash a couple times from Will Ospreay. He's been pulling out of his arsenal recently, as well as the phenomenal forearm. So there's been a pretty cool influence from one AJ Styles on Mr. Ospreay, and rightfully so, because that's how he started performing. Was he gravitated towards TNA of all things with AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, and Samoa Joe. That was
we saw a Styles clash on the ring apron. We saw a Styles clash out of the corner pretty awesome stuff.
Mhm.
At what point during this match, Jesse, did you start to feel like, all right, they're definitely going, like it's going to be a Broadway? Maybe they're going to go to a draw. At what point did you start thinking that?
40 minutes in, I would say, right in between the second and the third commercial break was right about that time. And that's kind of the time where I got a little bit restless. I mean, they did a decent job of pacing. They brawled on the outside. There were some rest holds, which were definitely needed between the two. Just keep in mind, this is MJF's third match back since December or the end of last year, too.
Yeah. And I mean, look, you're going 59 plus minutes. You got to have rest holes. These people are not, you know, machines out there. They're human beings, for God's sake. So, I mean, yeah, I probably around that point too is when I started to think about it. And then I was like, okay, that makes sense. They do a draw, they run it back at Wembley. And so the finish right before the buzzer actually did kind of surprise me a little bit. But I think, it's good to have then to do a rematch potentially. We think that's where they're going at Wembley, with Ospreay trying to get the title back in his home country. And that would, certainly it's a big match for him with him not being in the world title picture. And people will be very excited to see the rematch. But yeah, I thought it was a really good match too. Obviously, with 1 week's build, it didn't really have the story behind it too much. Although actually, it's been more than 1 week because of like the Garcia stuff that's been going on with MJF. And there's been some undertones throughout. That they were kind of leading this way, but they announced it with 1 week, to go to definitely try to pop a rating. No question about it. They did it a little bit better last night than they have been doing. So they did do a better number. And as you mentioned, the stuff going on with Warner right now and trying to get that new TV deal, it's important to do higher TV ratings. So it makes sense why they did that. As the match was getting going and you got to that like 30-minute point, 40-minute point, I was thinking like, dang, they got some other big segments on this card. How much time are they going to have for him? We still had Swerve and Okada to come. We knew they were going to do the Mariah May segment. They had Mercedes announced. And, it ended up that they had time for everything to breathe. And I thought the show was paced fine. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't agree with a lot of the criticisms that I saw online. But sometimes some of that debate is healthy for sure. I did not think that this was the best television match in AEW history. I think Meltzer made that statement. And we always say this, it's really hard to make those kinds of statements right after the match when you haven't had time to really let it set in. I mean, right away, I think Omega and Danielson at the first Grand Slam is still the best TV match they've ever done, and I'm pretty firm on that. I don't think this was better than that. I actually think both of the Page and the Hangman Page matches with Bryan Danielson, like the one at Winter is Coming in December 2021, and then they did a rematch a couple of weeks later in early January of 22. I would rank both of those ahead of this one too. And honestly, I think I might actually like Bryan and Hangman last week in the Owen finals a little bit better than this match. I mean, but these are all great matches. So that's not to say that this wasn't good. I think it's for sure in the top 10 of the best AEW TV matches they've ever had. I just don't think it's the best. I would slot it in right now, like at highest fifth, probably. What are your thoughts on any of that?
I liked Hangman Swerve this year, the 30-minute draw.
Yep, that's another one. Good
I think
call.
that's kind of on par with MJF Ospreay from this year. I really loved FTR versus Jay White and Juice Robinson from last year. I would actually put that for sure as my tag team match or television tag match maybe of all time.
Was that in Calgary? Was that collision in Calgary?
Oh my gosh, yes, it was. It was the same. Gosh, talk about like putting so much on a card. It was that and the 2 Owen finals.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, that
wow.
I mean, that was a hell of a match too. So
yeah,
I mean, there's
Ricky Starks,
some stiff
Punk.
competition.
Yeah, Willow Nightingale and whoever I don't remember who she defeated in the Owen final. Oh, Ruby Soho. That's right.
Yep.
So those 3 matches in a 2-hour span. Plus what you got last night, they even shoehorned Mr. Learning Tree in there as well.
Yeah. Yeah. We can forget about that one maybe. But yeah, yes, they did. I'm trying to think like what the last, and again, I have been very high in WWE television of late, and we're going to talk about Raw a little bit here at the end of the show. But I am trying to think like what the last great WWE TV match was. And stuff just doesn't stick out to me. I know I really liked Edge's farewell match last summer. in Toronto against Sheamus on SmackDown. That was a really good one. But nothing is really like these AEW ones, they just come to my mind right away. And there's stuff that like maybe you could point out if maybe you remember and I'll be like, oh yeah, that was really good. But nothing that's like jumping out at me right now.
There's two I can remember, and I can't recall when that gauntlet match was that Seth Rollins ended up winning. It was about an hour long. There was 5 guys. It was on Raw. Roman Reigns was a part of it as well. I think that was 2018.
Oh yeah, that was years ago because I actually was watching that at my in-laws' house in Minnesota, and they moved here in 2018. So it might have been early 2018, around there. Yeah, I mean, in like we're talking 6 years ago. I mean, anything in like the
Yep.
last year?
Year? No. I do have another one, and Kyle, I know, talked about this one a fair amount, was Daniel Bryan, AJ Styles on SmackDown, where, if I recall, I think there was only 1 or 2 pin attempts in 25 minutes
Yeah,
between the two. Yeah,
yeah,
that was also a solid match, but I'm guessing that was 2019?
yeah. I mean, we're talking years and years ago. I just, to me, the Edge one stands out, but like, there's nothing. If you're in our chat, let us know if you can think of anything. But I mean, nothing that's really ringing a bell in recent months,
No.
at least, that would be anywhere close to this level.
Gunther Ricochet from December of last year was very good. But
Okay.
I mean, if you were to throw that on an AEW event, I think that would fall in line for match of the night, maybe even number 2. But
Yeah.
I think I did watch that, and I honestly I would give that a flat 4
Yeah.
stars out of 5.
Well, we might be seeing Mr. Rick O'Shea on AEW television pretty soon. We shall see. See how long they hold off on his debut, but all reports indicate that that's where they're headed. So, yeah, I mean, awesome match, definitely worth checking out. I thought it flew by. Honestly, I thought the hour went really fast. We mentioned the pacing. I think there was only 3 commercial breaks during the entire match. They didn't get to the first one until around like 25 minutes into the show. You called out some of the spots. There was the spot when they fought in the crowd where like the little girl punched MJF. That was pretty funny. I liked that. And then yeah, the finish with MJF, using the Dynamite Diamond to get the win and steal the win and steal the title. So I like that. I like the visual of him, getting the oxygen as he was taken out of the ring and all of that. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Couple poison ranas from Ospreay, a Hurricane Rana where Ospreay lands on his feet. I mean, pretty much all the hits. The Tiger Driver being teased once again. Is he finally going to pull the trigger in England? Max is just going to piss him off to the point where he's just going to unleash it.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to do it, man. Got to do it.
It's coming.
Yeah. So one of the other criticisms of this show I saw was that they didn't really do anything to celebrate episode 250. And I get it why people would say that. I don't necessarily agree. I think we even talked about on the show last week how it kind of came out of nowhere that all of a sudden they were promoting this show as like an anniversary type show, episode 250, because like those aren't the numbers that usually get celebrated. Like maybe the 50s, I guess sometimes, but it's more like the even hundreds that you celebrate, like episode 200 and 300 and so on. Like I don't think we've ever really celebrated the 50. Like tonight is 350. I'm not doing a celebration on the podcast for 350. Now 400, yeah, probably would do something. So I get why people are saying that, but I don't really think that that's the type of anniversary that people would celebrate. Also, they're kind of packed with time. They're doing an hour-long show, and then they're trying to fit in like highlights throughout too, and then to do all the other segments. I don't know that they had time either, but did you have a problem with that? Did you think that was like a glaring omission on the show?
No. I mean, they made it special enough with the match itself, and you got the build coming for All In with Mariah May in her explanation. You got a Swerve Okada main event. So, and plus they're going to be celebrating their 5-year anniversary they're 10 episodes away now. So 52 times 5 would be 260. So yeah, I mean, they're going to probably throw a lot more anniversary clips, and that's just a pretty short distance away.
Yeah, great point. So speaking of Mariah May, Jesse, they followed up last week. I mean, we raved on the show for a long time about how great that angle was to end the show. And honestly, even despite the great matches that were announced, I mean, this was like right up there for me. I was really looking forward to seeing how they would follow that, what they'd have Mariah do, like what theme she would come out to, what she would say, all of that. What did you think of the follow-up this week with Mariah May?
There were some good parts to it, and then there were some negative parts to it. I was startled with Tony Schiavone.
Oh, yeah, dropping saying the bad
Mhm.
word. I don't want to say it, but yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yep. Like, just speak up, and then you can kinda use your
Yeah.
imagination if you didn't hear it either.
Sounded like the other announcers were a little startled too. They're like, "Geez, Tony." I was like, "Come on, man." Yeah,
Like, "I'm sorry, she's evil."
if you've never been to an AEW live show, by the way, Shivani sometimes gets on the mic when they're off air and swears a lot. Was that? Yeah, it was Collision in Chicago. Remember last year that we went to, like the night before All Out, and he made this joke off air about how like his wife was all worried because he was going into Chicago and was he going to get shot and all this stuff. And he said, "No, you stupid," same word. And the crowd was like, "What? He's call his wife that?" But like, this is something he does. So if you've never been to an AEW show, Tony getting on the house mic swearing is not all that uncommon, and using that word in particular. Yes.
When I first heard what happened when I started likening him to Bob Saget.
Ooh, yeah.
If you really wanna go, because you think of him as Danny Tanner, Mr. Clean, the dad on Full House, and then you hear his comedic shtick, and you've seen him in Half Baked, and you go, "Whoa, where in the world did that come
Right.
from?"
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So, yeah, there was some good and some bad, but overall, what did you like about the segment? What did maybe you not like so much about the segment?
The crowd.
Yeah, agree. That
Ugh,
crowd.
ugh.
What are we doing with what chance in 2024 Oklahoma City? Or no, not Oklahoma City. Sorry, Little Rock, right? Little Rock, Arkansas.
Little Rock, Arkansas.
Jeez.
Yeah,
What
hey,
chance? It's
I
been
know.
it's been almost 25 years since that. Like, who is doing that? Come on. What chance? That was bad. That was real bad. I agree. The crowd was certainly a weak point in this. Go on.
This is their first AEW show? Is that correct?
Yeah, it might be. Yeah.
Because I looked and they had been the WWE had 3 events, I think, the last 3 years there in terms of,
Mhm.
house shows and SmackDowns and Raws. What did I like about it? Her coming out and cosplaying just to continue it. So she's gonna stay with this for a little while longer, and I really liked your point last week on how, like, what type of presentation is she truly gonna display when she has to be on her own?
Mhm.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
just saying that and I think catching people off guard, especially Toni Storm. She just said that, I mean, nobody knew it was coming except me, but you should have.
Mhm.
Really enjoyed that part of the promo. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
she's definitely coming across as a rock star right now.
Yeah, dude, she looked so much like Tony Storm in the Hollywood getup that she came out in. I think a lot of the crowd was legit confused at first and thought she was her. It was pretty incredible. And then she does that like very slow cadence, which unfortunately led them to do the what chance. But I think that was very intentional. Zach made this point on One True Sport earlier today when we were doing the Daily Show that he thought that that was very intentional and get the crowd to boo her because it was kind of like, spit it out kind of thing. And she was just really slowly and deliberately like dragging it along. My gripe with it is more in production, and I'm also going to give them some credit with production. So as I was watching it, I thought that, it might have made more sense to have this just be a pre-tape. You wouldn't have had the crowd issue. They could have had her in like, could have done the black and white bit, had her in like some kind of, fancy mansion or something, and really got their point across really well. I'm sure they wanted to get her in front of the crowd, but I think it was a little risky to do that given what they had her do with the slow cadence and everything. So I think personally, I probably would have just done this as a pre-tape. I don't think she had to do that out in front of the crowd. I don't think there was really any reason to do that. That said, she succeeded. I think she did a good job. And so that was a negative. I thought possibly that's like a small nitpick. It ended up working out. It's just I would have probably done that a little bit differently. Um, to the positive, and I don't know if you noticed as watching live, but one of the things I have been ranting on our pod for the last couple of weeks is that they need to light these arenas better. The crowd is so dark, and they've
Mhm.
had like basically a blackened crowd with like a few blue and like purplish spotlights, but it's so dark and it looks so low rent compared to WWE, which is all very brightly lit. If you notice, this week on Dynamite, they had the crowd lit up the whole time. They did not have that dark effect going on. They finally changed that. And I thought that was a positive, even though you could tell, at the end of the arena that there was definitely the tarps covering seats. You could tell when they went to like the shot from the entrance ramp looking that direction. But overall, I just thought it looked a lot better to be able to see the crowd. Did you notice that?
Now that you mentioned, yes, especially when you saw the multiple Okada signs, like revealing his Gmail and some other things. I thought that was kind of funny. So yes, big difference in presentation this week.
Because when we went, a lot of the TRN crew went to Dynamite like about 4 weeks ago or something in Des Moines, and my seats were on the aisle, 4 rows off the ground. And my daughter was like in the aisle trying to get on TV. You could not see her. It was so dark. We were 4 rows off the ground and it was just so dark on TV. You would have to like really squint. And you know how I always wear that bright blue Top Rope Nation shirt? I was wearing it at the show. It did not pop at all because the damn arena is so dark. So I am glad they got away from that because I think that looks very, very low rent to not be able to see the fans at all. I mean, WWE they're just hitting you over the head with it. They want you to see that those arenas are full and they light up the whole place. It's super bright. And AEW used to do that, when they first started. I'm glad they changed that look. I think it improved the look of the show. So on a production side, I like that last
especially night. In contrast to their pay-per-views, because you mentioned it again. I probably saw your daughter at least 25 times at Dynasty.
Yeah.
Saw you quite a few times too. So yeah, you kind of want it to be consistent across all levels.
I think it was solely because of attendance. They're trying to hide the attendance issues on TV because their pay-per-views usually are sold out or close, like Dynasty was. So it's super brightly lit. Same thing with out Long Island, Frank was the Forbidden Door. But the TV, the attendance has been like hovering around 3,000 or so. And they're trying to hide it, but it's too much. I think it doesn't look good. And if you're just channel flipping and you're used to WWE and you see that, you're like, this show looks bad. It just doesn't look as good as it used to. So speaking of that, Jesse, what is your excitement level? What do you feel about the build to Blood and Guts next week? Because they're running a huge arena. They're running one of these NHL arenas in Nashville, Bridgestone Arena. It's like an 18,000 seat arena again. It's set up for only 4,000 fans. They'll probably fill that up. They were getting pretty close last I looked on WrestleTix. But still, I mean, that is a huge building, and it's going to be really hard for them to shoot that with the big cage to not show off the blacked out seats. But it's Blood and Guts. It's what, the 4th Blood and Guts match that they have done, and they're really hyping it on TV. Do you feel that this match warrants the hype?
No.
Me either.
I look at the first 3 Blood and especially, oh my gosh, I remember clear as day yesterday, the Pinnacle in not the Jericho Appreciation Society, but the Inner Circle, and how well constructed that was and how excited I was for that match. I was just all systems go. Even the next couple with the Jericho Appreciation Society as well, they were being involved. Then you had the superstar level one last year with the Blackpool Combat Club and the Elite. So we turned it around this year and Team AEW as well. I mean, I like Mark Briscoe. I don't know if necessarily if he should be in this match. I mean, the Acclaim, their star has definitely fallen quite a bit. Mm-hmm. I know, like if half of that team were involved, or if Max Caster, who he isn't, who he is. I mean, maybe I would enjoy this more. But yeah, it just seems like Swerve, Darby Allin, and then who against the Elite, and the build in itself just hasn't come together like it should, because the focus has been on Theo, and it's been on Bryan Danielson, it's been on Swerve, it's been a lot on Will Ospreay. We talked about Toni Storm and Mariah May last week, Mercedes Moné. So the Elite have just kind of fallen to the backdrop. Even after they attacked Tony Khan, I feel they haven't really been pushed to the forefront. So this has been the lowest, hands down, in terms of anticipation I've been looking forward to at Blood and Guts.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, you look at the star power, and yeah, I mean, you'd have to go back to probably the first one to have the lack of star power. I mean, they had the Inner Circle against Pinnacle, so you had some stars out there, but I mean, you also had Jake Hager, you had like Sean Spears in that match. Guevara, I guess, it was early on. They were still kind of pushing him as a big deal, but he definitely wasn't a big star yet. Santana and Ortiz, who we like a lot, but just aren't really stars. They were in that match. And then the next year, again, Jericho was in it with the Jericho Appreciation Society. But you had Blackpool Combat Club. Last year, Blackpool Combat Club again with the Elite, definitely more star power. And then, it feels like a step back because on one side, the Elite, certainly it's loaded. And I agree with you. Like the Acclaim just are not there right now. They are not. They are near the bottom of their run in AEW when it comes to like hype level or how over they are with the crowd. They don't feel like a big deal right now. They were super hot a couple of years ago, but they kind of bottomed out of late, and then being the match, Briscoe, I agree with you too. I mean, really like the guy, but he's just not a big time star for a match like this. So, I mean, it looks like Swerve has really put together a lackluster team. You got Darby, who's a mainstay, but outside of that, it's like, come on, Swerve, that's the best you can do. So like, I'm with you. I'm not really looking forward to it all that much, unfortunately, because we've given AEW a lot of credit and the product has been really good. I have felt, and I'm sure the match will be good. But I was more excited by far for this show and last week, certainly, than I am for this one in Nashville next week.
Yeah, you had both the Owens, and then you had the huge championship matches this coming week. FTR just came back last Saturday. I mean, is it too soon for them to get into a blood and guts scenario where, I mean, they almost have a rightful shot once again at the Young Bucks? I mean, and here's another sad thing that nobody really talks about. When Matt and Nick Jackson first took the stage in Jacksonville, February 2019. They talked about they're going to have the best tag team division in the world, and they did for a couple of years. And now all of a sudden, it's just an afterthought. There's just there's no continuity. There aren't really any teams. There's a couple, but yeah, that tag division that was so vaunted and loaded is all of a sudden just complete back fodder for both singles divisions.
It's kind of swapped with the women's division. Everyone bashed the women's division for the first couple of years, and rightfully so, that there wasn't a lot of focus on it. And now, I mean, AEW arguably has the best women's division in pro wrestling. We haven't even talked about, they did the stuff with Britt and Mercedes, but I mean, that definitely feels secondary to the Toni Mariah story right now to me. But I mean, it's star power, so there's focus there as well. So they got two women's titles that have a lot of attention on them right now. And yeah, the tag division, like nobody is thinking about that. And the main event here, last night with Okada and Swerve, it essentially was just a setup to build towards blood and guts. That's all it was. DQ finish with the Bucks getting involved, and then everyone runs out. Darby with the surprise appearance from the ceiling and all of that. I didn't really have a problem with that finish because this is a match they can go back to in the future and make it more of a big deal. Here it was just, again, to help try to pop a rating, but to just set up and tee up next week for blood and guts. And that's really all it was. So with that being understood, I was fine with it. They only gave them like 10 minutes or a little less of TV time. There wasn't a lot of time for it once the bell finally rang in the main event.
Right. Yeah, I think it was, if I saw 11 and a half minutes.
Yeah, something like that.
Yep, when that DQ took place, and then the brawl, and here we go towards next week, and I don't know what else is on the show. I'm sure that's going to trickle things out here in the next couple of days and after Collision.
Mm-hmm. All right, so that's AEW. Let's transition here. Just a little bit of WWE talk tonight before we wrap up. So you caught a little bit of Raw. You said I watched Raw. Couple of things I want to talk about. I want to talk about CM Punk and Drew and how that story continues to evolve. And then also, Rhea Ripley. Let's start with Rhea Ripley, since I mentioned her with the interview that you can listen to over on our Patreon page. How did you like how they brought back Rhea Ripley and her segment to start the show?
The right way. I mean, it's Dom coming out in the middle of everything too. And now we have like Liv Morgan still playing the antagonist. And I don't know if people are being misled or not, but there are some people that think that Dom is going to turn on Rhea and Liv's going to retain.
I am leaning that way. I don't think they should have Rhea beat it for it right away. I think that they should drag this out for a couple of cycles and eventually get there. So whether it is Dom turning on Rhea outright, or like accidentally costing her the match, and then like it continues that he swears he's innocent, and then he really turns on her a few weeks later, and then finally a few weeks after that, Rhea wins the title. I don't think she should win it right away. I think some people think it's like a lock or something, but I don't think so. I mean, I think with the story they're telling, I think she needs to come up short. You got to play into that drama a little bit here, and that's what I would do at least.
And hopefully it helps Liv in the long run too, because I know, we've been giving her a lot of flack for years. I think she's fine, but who knows? Maybe this could be the elevation that she needs.
Yeah, in the ring, she's decent enough. She's not gonna blow you away with her wrestling skills by any means, but you also don't have to if you have the character work down. And I think she's been fine on the character work side in this storyline. I thought, what she did last week, when she ran off through the crowd, and then they had that clip of her peeking out in the curtain and slyly smiling and all of that. I thought that was all well done. And yeah, I agree with you. Rhea Ripley, the way she came out, and basically throughout the show on Monday, she made it into this deal where it was this struggle for who's in the powerful position in their relationship. And there was this segment backstage where like Dom was talking about like giving her flowers, and he accidentally said he wanted to show people that she belongs to him, and Rhea didn't like that, and Rhea eventually said, "No, Dom, you belong to me." I like that. Like she's the alpha in this relationship, not Dominic Mysterio. Nice little touch there. But yeah, I think the way that this is going long term is that Rhea and Priest split off from the group, and there'll be like a new Judgment Day with Finn, with Dominic, with McDonough, and Liv Morgan. Maybe it's not even called the Judgment Day, just a new faction. I don't know, because you've had Finn certainly interacting with Liv on TV too, and they're clearly turning Priest babyface, and people just want to cheer Rhea because she's so awesome. So that's the natural direction, I think, here.
Yeah, you're not getting any arguments from me there. We'll definitely see how, I know this is token cliche, but see how this plays out.
Yeah, see how it plays out.
No, I think I think it's I really like your logic behind this, because it'll be a nice chase for Rhea instead of the foregone conclusion that I came to last week that Rhea would just take it back right away.
Yeah. Now, what do you think about Drew McIntyre? Because he made his return to TV. Punk was not in the building, and he had that segment with Adam Pearce out in the middle of the ring with the two referees out there. What did you think of how this was executed?
And he's still suspended.
Yep, still suspended.
Oh, goodness. Although I might have called my shot last week with Seth Rollins, saying he's going to be a special guest referee at some point in time. Or I said SummerSlam, and that's looking like a possibility as long as Punk is healthy. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the one thing that's the reason why that McIntyre suspension maybe hasn't been lifted yet, is because maybe they're not certain that Punk is going to get cleared in time for this. There really hasn't been anything new on the injury front.
Yeah. If he can't get cleared, you got Rollins there to step right in and have a match with McIntyre. So maybe they're just kind of keeping him warm for that too. But the story on Monday was essentially Adam Pearce trying to get an apology out of Drew McIntyre. And like McIntyre is like, oh, okay, and he's trying to get unsuspended. But eventually, like, Pearce pushed him too far, and he wanted him to apologize to the referees, for his tirade and all of that. And eventually Drew snaps, and he's like, what are you talking about? Punk's done this kind of stuff too. Why should I have to apologize? And he refused to, so he's still... What did you make of all this?
This is really painting a light on the fact that Drew McIntyre should be getting some sympathy from the crowd, and it sounds like he has been. So this isn't really heelish of him. This is more heelish of Adam Pearce.
Exactly. That was my thought too. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's... If you're watching this, like, logically, and you're thinking, if this is a real sport or something, and this is an athlete, like, trying to get unsuspended by the league, wouldn't you be saying, he's exactly right? He is getting different treatment than everyone else. Like, look at all this shit Punk has done, and he doesn't have to apologize. He's been interfering nonsense. Why are you making me do this? All kinds of wrestlers around here hit and push officials and all kinds of things. Why me? They're kind of making him into a whiner for sure, but there is that thread of reality that he's actually in the right. And I think maybe long term, there is a double turn and he does become the face out of this and Punk goes heel, which I think would be optimal because Drew McIntyre is a hell of an entertaining guy, whether he's, a all out heel or maybe a baby face with some heel tendencies. I think people just recognize he's good and kind of want to cheer him. And Punk, as we've said many, many times on this show, has always been way better as a heel. And I think long term, maybe you get there. But that was my thought too, Jesse, as I was watching this. It was like, wait a second. Everything Drew McIntyre is saying is accurate. Why would he have to grovel like this? This is kind of nonsense.
He had the world title taken from him twice. I mean, the first time he was egging Punk on, so I mean, maybe he brought that upon himself. But this last time with the Money in the Bank contract, no, I mean, Punk took it into his own hands to beat up McIntyre and to just kind of just leave him for dead and Damian Priest to retain. So yeah, the logic there is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, because like one time, okay, but it was only because Drew had been teasing him on TV. Like it wasn't Drew didn't injure him. Drew's not really responsible for what happened. And
Well, true.
Punk loses out on his match, which was going to be Rollins, by all accounts at WrestleMania before all the plans had to change. And it's like, okay, so he teased you on TV a lot, so you got him back. But I mean, he's cost him actually 3 times, right? Because he cost him at WrestleMania, cost him at Clash at the Castle, and then he cost him at Money in the Bank. So it's like over and over and over again. It's like, dude, you gotten your payback numerous times. Is Punk the crybaby here? Get over it. He can't get over the fact that, he got injured and Drew teased him for a little bit on TV. So I don't know. It's a good storyline. I mean, clearly it's one of the best things on TV.
Drew has Punk's keychain or his little Larry wristband too, so that's another reason why Punk's agitated. Yeah, I think a lot of us are taking Drew's side on this, so the double turn, I'm pretty sure, is coming.
Yeah. So last thing, I don't know if you had a chance to see SmackDown last week or not, but I've been doing so many podcasts lately. I'm trying to remember if it was this show or the other show, One True Sport, that we talked about this. But I think we have talked about on the show, and certainly in the review of Money in the Bank, that Solo Sikoa just kind of being a guy that is hard to buy for me in this role as the challenger to Cody Rhodes. And on SmackDown last week, they really tried to get you to buy in, that he is the alpha here in the bloodline. They clearly set up SummerSlam with Cody last week on SmackDown. Are you buying into him more now, or how are you feeling as this continues to play out?
Nope. Like I said, this is just being used as a vehicle for Roman Reigns to return at SummerSlam. That's the way I feel. But Jacob Fatu is the presence now. I mean, he's the one he just recently got introduced, so we don't really know the full extent of his character. And has he spoken?
Not directly, no.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is Solo's first time in actually a speaking role was when Roman left. So, I mean, he's done okay, but no, nothing to really truly for me to buy into him dethroning Cody Rhodes, even though he pinned him. This is just like Jay pinning Roman last year at Money in the Bank and saying, well, yeah, first time in 4 years that Roman's been pinned. Maybe we can buy it at SummerSlam. No, Roman's getting his win back. I mean, that's what's going to happen here with Cody too.
Yeah, for sure. And I think everyone sees through it. Like nobody thinks Cody's going to lose to him. Everyone's expecting Roman back. And so, I mean, that's just the problem I have with it is you're talking about your second biggest pay-per-view of the year, arguably, depending on where you slot in Royal Rumble, second or third. And you got a guy challenging for not just a world title, but the world. This is the main title in the promotion. This isn't the Raw world title that they created out of thin air. This is the real deal. This is the one Roman had for years. And you got Solo up there who is just like, nobody buys that he's winning. Everyone's just expecting the return. And he's essentially like a prop out there in this match. And everyone's going to be watching the entrance aisle throughout the entire thing at Cleveland Browns Stadium. That's what's going to be happening. And so I don't know. I don't really know about this dynamic. I think they're doing their best on kind of, it feels like short notice because, like I've said before, if they had this in mind long term, there's no way Solo Sikoa would have been losing all those matches on TV last year. I mean, I think that I think that because of how WrestleMania played out and the crowd revolting against Rock, and now they had to pivot and what they did there at Mania, I think they had to change a lot of plans, and they got to the point where Roman's going to take some time off. We're going to do this Bloodline Civil War story, and Solo, you're going to have to like carry the load. You're going to be the leader now. And it's like they didn't really set him up for that at all to be viable in that role. He was booked to be like this pretty big force when he came in, and he didn't talk at all, and he was like the enforcer in the group. But then, like as you mentioned last week, he was losing all the time after WrestleMania 39. Like almost on a weekly basis for a while there, he was losing. And so they didn't make you think he was as strong anymore. And now here he is slotted in as the head of the table. And, they've done all the presentation tricks to try to make you think that that's him and stuff. It's just, to me, it's hard to buy into. I will just say that.
I do have a question for our Top Rope Nation audience. I would love to know, do you buy Solo Sikoa more as a challenger at SummerSlam in 2024, or did you buy King Mabel more at SummerSlam 1995 against Diesel?
Hey, he had won King of the Ring. He had that going for him. Yeah, I mean, man, it's dire.
This has the potential to be that bad.
Yeah, it's true.
Probably the worst. Yeah, could this be the worst main event since SummerSlam since then? I mean, in terms of just the marquee.
I mean, yeah, because that was after Undertaker versus Undertaker.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be because it just look. Everyone loves Cody, super over with the crowd and stuff. But I mean, again, we've talked about this with Cody when he won the title, and we were trying to forecast his feuds afterwards. It was like, they don't have the built-in heels to challenge him over there on SmackDown. Who's he going to wrestle? And it's just been these stopgap feuds. He hasn't had really anything to sink his teeth into. And I mean, that's not on him. That's on I'm told the greatest booker in the universe, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, and I can do no wrong except for set up heels for his top babyface champion, Jesse.
See, but that's the issue. I've been saying that for a while now. Triple H does a better job when he's booking a heel champion than he does when he's booking a babyface champion and trying to find some heels to chase. That's why I think when Gunther ends up, well, we would assume that Gunther's going to win that championship at SummerSlam, that he's going to have a decent amount of face contenders and some stories leading into Survivor Series and Royal Rumble and getting into Mania next year.
I mean, over on that side, they got way more to work with. I mean, you got Rollins there, to eventually challenge on the babyface side. Of course, you got CM Punk as well. For now, maybe long-term Drew becomes a face. I mean, there's just a lot more to work with over there at the top of the card. And like Cody just hasn't really had much. So yeah, it's been really difficult not having those challengers that you could foresee coming for him. It's just like, all right, we'll do the AJ thing for a little while. We'll do a tag match. We'll set up this where really this match, he's the world champion and he is not even the focus. The whole focus is Roman Reigns coming back. So again, he's just kind of second fiddle here. So I still find it pretty awkward. I think they've done a good job on Raw changing the dynamic and getting the crowd behind Priest, because as we talked about a lot, that it's like a heel dynamic with Gunther, and now he's clearly moving in the face direction. But yeah, over here on SmackDown, Cody is kind of in no man's land with no natural feuds for him until it's Rock or Roman maybe down the line. So, But then Roman's going to be getting cheered when he comes back. So that's kind of out for now. So it's got to be Rock.
How long can they keep Roman out of the title picture for? That's a big question.
Yeah, I mean, was this you or Zach that said this? So many podcasts right now. But like someone said on a show with me recently that they think when Rock comes back, it's going to be that Rock is pulling the strings behind Solo, and that he'll flip on Roman, and then they'll do Roman Rock with Rock as the heel, but Rock's with like the Solo bloodline. That'll be the story long term. And then with that heel Rock, then you can do the Cody match. I can see that.
Sounds like Zach. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, Roman's going to get so many cheers when he comes. I mean, that's how they've set up the whole thing, getting people to boo the new bloodline. So they're all going to be behind him, of course. And he'll reunite with the Usos probably. And, they'll do whatever they do. But yeah, it wouldn't make sense to match him right after the Bloodline Civil War stuff with Cody, because he'll be getting all the cheers at that point in time, unless the fans turn on Cody by then, I guess.
Oh, and then he would be staring down the barrel of that again, looking at the Chris Van Vliet interview and some of the things that he said there.
Yeah.
Spinning the AEW origin story.
Yeah. Well, I think he re-signed here, so he won't be running away from this promotion anytime soon. That's for sure.
No.
They're going to tell him if he needs to turn heel. He won't be able to refuse.
Yeah, he'll be in big trouble if his weight belt gets thrown back into the middle of the ring again.
Then
we were there
hell
for
will
that.
break loose. Yeah, absolutely. All hell will break loose then. All right. Well, yeah, that's kind of what the lay of the land on WWE right now. Anything else going on in pro wrestling you want to talk about before we get out of here? Anything on your mind, or just in general?
I do want to add one more thing that was very impressive and tugged at my heartstrings, was also from Monday Night Raw, and that was Mr. Eric Rowan.
Oh, yeah, we should talk about Wyatt 6 and how that went. Go ahead.
Gosh, was that a tremendous promo with the realism, and of course with Brody dying and then Bray dying a little over a year later. You could just tell it hit him right in the heartstrings, and I absolutely felt for him and do feel for him. And yeah, it's definitely the promo of his life. But again, I think it comes across with that huge touch of realism and how much I think this run's going to mean to him.
Mm-hmm.
So I think now, if you can draw into more of the human touch of the Wyatt Six and try to draw away from the supernatural, the hokey stuff, which I don't know if they're going to be able to do that. I think if you can do a little bit more of that, maybe I can buy into this iteration.
Yeah, and there was some discussion on this on our Facebook group the other day. And yeah, I agree with that mindset that they should lean into the humanity side like they've been doing in these promos, whether it was the Rowan one or the one they did with Bo Dallas a couple of weeks ago. I think they should do it with all of the members of the group. And it's fine for them to do these characters backstage and when they all come out as a group and stuff, but I almost feel like when they wrestle, they should wrestle as just their normal character, because if they wrestle with the mask or they do the supernatural stuff in the ring, as we've seen in the past, it's just really hard to pull that off. So you can kind of do those characters outside of the ring, but when they wrestle, I feel like they should be the people who we know, like it should be Bo Dallas in the ring, and it should be Eric Rowan in the ring, not just the character with the mask. And I hope that's how it goes, because, it looks like you would expect at SummerSlam maybe a match for Bo at least. And if he does wrestle, I want him to be wrestling as Bo Dallas. I don't want him to be wrestling as Uncle Howdy. I think they do that character on the side, but they're leading you into who these people really are, which, as you said, I think is a good move, because it strays a little bit away from the supernatural stuff and makes it more likely that this does work out long term.
Yeah, I think it does. I know a lot of people give Bo Dallas some gripe, and in a sense, they maybe should. What I can remember is he was the third NXT champion.
Mm-hmm.
So he has to have some wrestling ability. I know he's been strapped with the Bo Leave gimmick when he came up, and that wasn't necessarily, his most shining moment. And he teamed with Curtis Axel, who had just fallen from the graces too. So maybe there is some hope to resurrect this, and maybe he can show us something. Because I think that this character is going to be, it could be something good if they stray away from the Uncle Howdy portion of it and feature Bo Dallas, like you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I think we should give him credit too, because when this debuted, we were skeptical and we said, Bo Dallas has never shown that he can have the charisma to carry a group like this, but so far he has, and we got to give him credit. I thought he did a nice job in the ring when they actually had him come out to the ring as Bo Dallas. And then the rest of the crew came out and made the save Monday night, but him doing the laughing thing in the corner, but then him doing the sit down interviews and all, like, he's shown a lot of different, he's shown he has ability on the mic in different settings. And I think he has shown that he does have the charisma to get this done. Maybe we'll see. But so far, I think he has exceeded my expectations. So I got to give him credit on that.
Yeah, I mean, we got the old and then the bell rings, which again, I'm hoping for positive stuff here.
Yes.
Time will definitely tell, because I mean, Joe Gacy, Dexter Loomis, I don't think they have much in terms of wrestling ability. I mean, Nikki Cross, I think will be fine. She's been a
Yeah.
little. I mean, her character has just been very supernatural. It's been kind of
Mhm.
spooky. I think maybe the spookiest of the entire crew.
Yeah, that they do a sit down interview with her. That will be interesting. See how that one goes. But yeah, she's leaned into it the most, absolutely, with that mask and crawling around, and her being the last image you see when they they have that scream on the screen or whatever when they end their segments. So yeah, we'll see how it plays out. Again, as you said, once the bell rings, that will be the true test, and how they're able to translate this gimmick into matches, which you have to do, in pro wrestling to keep this thing going. So we'll
You
see.
got
We'll see. But
Chad Gable and the Creeds to face off with, and Gable's definitely known for his in ring prowess. The Creeds are on the
Mhm.
up and coming, which kind of scares me too, because I would like to see the Gable Creed trio get their upcomings and move forward. I think they have a little more potential long term. I would say in ring, maybe not character wise. So maybe this is just kind of the feud for the two upcoming factions to see who gets over and where their direction's headed.
So that is one thing that the Wyatt gimmick has been a detriment to is Gable's storyline, yeah, with his crew, with Otis and Tozawa and Maxine and everything. They've lost steam in that storyline because they've mixed in Gable's, the new Team Gable or whatever with the Wyatts. There hasn't been as much focus on that story with what was going on with Otis, which the crowd was super into. And that's, they had the interaction on Raw this last Monday, but they've definitely lost a lot of steam in that story. I mean, that story was right up there. If you haven't been watching WWE, you might think I'm crazy for saying this, but I am promising you it is true. The Otis Gable stuff was right there with Punk and McIntyre. Like the crowd has been super, super into this, and it hasn't had a lot on TV ever since the Wyatts got mixed in. So, I mean, you could certainly make the argument that maybe the Wyatt Six should not have been. They shouldn't have been mixed in with that storyline and pulled Gable away from that. That maybe they should have gone with paired off with somebody else. So I can see that argument for sure.
Almost Vince-esque the way that they've dropped it. They haven't fully dropped it, like you said. I mean, they did have the Otis interaction, but yes, I can completely validate your statement. I have seen a lot of the Gable and Alpha Junior Academy segments, and they've definitely gotten top 2 in terms of crowd responses over that last month.
Yeah, no question about it. So, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I almost forgot because I did say at the top I wanted to talk about the Wyatts. So that's kind of what's been going on there. Rhea, we hit on McIntyre, got a little bit into what's been going on SmackDown. So I think, man, we covered a lot of topics here in the last hour, Jesse.
That was a
Nice
good
job,
goal.
sir. Yeah. Got anything fun happening this weekend?
We do. We're recording episode 149 finally on Sunday. I do have I'll be dropping like a half year, the 2024 like half match of the year, first half match of the year, wrestlers of the year, men, women. Give you some old wrestling Twitter fodder like I always do. I've got about 6 queued up in the cannons. You all can laugh at them. And
Nice.
we'll probably throw in a couple little nuggets. I might have to tap back into my archives to see what I've talked about this time of year and maybe rehash some stuff that's permanent to today, 2024.
Nice. All right. Well, we'll look for that. That'll be on the Patreon side, you guys. So if you want to hear the next edition of Jesse's show, again, sign up for the Patreon page. Got TRN Classics dropping here in a couple of weeks as well. So best way to support the show, as always, that's how we got to episode 350, is the support of our patrons. We would not be doing this without the wonderful support from all of you out there. Aaron Graham in the chat. Good
Out
to
of the
see Aaron.
woodworks.
There's Aaron. Good to see Aaron. Hopefully, we'll be seeing Aaron in a couple of weeks. We'll see. My wife has a class reunion, and I'm hoping to pull
Oh,
Aaron out of his house that weekend when I get up there. So, yeah, we shall see. We spend some time in Minnesota in the not too distant future. Yeah, that's about it. I know that Justin has some family stuff going on this weekend, so I hope he recovers. And I know Justin is out there listening right now. So Justin, hope you feel better, sir, and you get back on the line with us next week. And until then, you guys, you can find us over in the Facebook group. So if you want to talk with us each and every day, as well as about 350 other great wrestling fans, search Top Rope Nation Pro Wrestling Discussion. Lots of content going up in there all the time. As I said before, help us out by subscribing on the YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts. You can like this video. You can leave us a 5-star review, leave us a written review on Apple or Spotify, wherever you're getting your podcast. That helps us out a lot as well. If you have a question for the show, you can always write in. You can find us topropenation@gmail.com, or you can find us on social media. The handle everywhere is at Top Rope Nation. So that is it for episode 350. What do you got, Jesse?
You headed to Tragos this weekend?
I might be. I know Ryan Huffman is there right now, so I might make a little journey over to the Tragos Hall of Fame. We shall see. That's going on in Iowa this weekend. Certainly some big names, as always, mulling the streets of Waterloo, Iowa this weekend, and always a highlight in Waterloo. So we'll see. We'll see. I'll provide an update if I make my way over there on next week's show for sure. Otherwise, I'll ask Ryan Huffman how things went. But yeah, we shall see. Never a shortage of things going on in pro wrestling.
I know. I got to get there one of these years. Maybe we'll put it in the cards for 2025.
Yeah, maybe it'll have some star power and we'll have to drag you down. We'll see. Either way, it'd be a good excuse to get to the Flying Elbow again.
Yes.
Make the drive down there, too.
See if they can show something as good as Bret Hart, Steve Austin from WrestleMania 13 on the televisions down there.
If you guys missed that episode, the Flying Elbow is a burger joint in Marshalltown, Iowa, a little ways away from here. That is excellent. Awesome place. Wrestling memorabilia all over the walls, playing pro wrestling all the time. Yeah, we went back. What was that? Was that for Revolution weekend when you were down?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, we all went down there. You, Jay was with us, the whole TRN crew, Tim. Good time. All right, guys. Well, we're going to take off. We hope you guys have a good weekend. And yeah, we'll be back next week. Have a good weekend, everybody. Take care.
Watch for the diamond ring.